HannaTalk. What is up, Dragon Ball fans? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. Happy Good Friday to all the Australian people out there, or to anybody who celebrates Good Friday around the world, and happy Easter this week as well. And today, I am here with a very special guest. Now, he is a voice actor who is best known to fans as the voice of Android 17 and a variety of other characters from the Dragon Ball franchise, but he's also been best known from shows such as Fullmetal Alchemist, Yu Yu Hakusho, Soul Eater, Ace Attorney, and projects such as Borderlands, My Hero Academia, and so much more. Please welcome back to HannaTalk, the amazing Chuck Huber.
Hello, how are you? It's good to see you.
Absolutely good to see you and talk to you as well, Chuck. How are you?
Doing good, just getting ready. The big news is I have a baby coming May 24th.
Oh,
My wife's
fantastic.
having babies. So most of our life is consumed with preparations for baby.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And of course, it's a beautiful day right here in Melbourne, Australia. I can't imagine what the weather must be like in Dallas, Texas, I believe.
Yeah, so it was a great day today. These are one of these rare days where it was like a high of 68 and a low of 39 or so. So nice and crisp in the morning, but then got up to be, you know, pretty decently warm, not too cold. Especially nice in the sun, bright sunny day. So it was great. Today was a great day.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, as we were mentioning about, of course, with Dragon Ball, I would just like to start off by saying I'm really sorry to hear about the death of creator Akira Toriyama. That was just absolutely shocking when the news first broke out. What was your experience with Akira Toriyama? Did you ever get to meet him or like interact with him personally before he passed?
I really wish I would have. He is obviously a giant, a titan, but more than that, he's an artist, and I'm married to an artist. And artists, even when they become big, they still remain artists, especially the good ones. And he would have been a great one to meet. He would have been a lot of fun to, it would have been fun to talk to him and just pick his brain about what he was thinking with Android 17. Just get his download on it and see what new insights could be gained. And as far as his death goes, I never met him, so of course it was felt by me the same way fans might feel it, but probably even more keenly for fans because it's a bit of a passing of the torch. There's something eternal about Dragon Ball Z and Deep Dragon Ball and the whole universe super that he created. It's going to go on and live forever, but he is not. But he went much sooner than anyone expected. It kind of came as a surprise. None of us knew he was ill. And of course, it's really it's most poignant for his family and his close colleagues and friends. But I focus on how what an incredible honor it is to have my name associated with his work for the rest of my life and my children's lives and my grandchildren. When someone creates something that's going to go on and on, the artist who drew Steamboat Willie is his work lives to this day. We know Steamboat Willie. DBZ is a little bit more popular than that particular cartoon, so it's going to live on for many, 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 many years. Maybe forever. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this video game works, but to be associated with him is a great honor. One of the greatest honors you can have as an artist.
That's fantastic. And I think that's definitely true in that regard, in that even though he's passed away this year, Dragon Ball is still going incredibly strong to this day forward. Now, as talking a little further about Dragon Ball, now obviously it's been around for almost the last, I think, 25 years at this point, as far as the anime was concerned, because I think it started with the original Dragon Ball series before it started going into Z and all that kind of stuff. So it's been around for a very, very long time. And why do you think the Dragon Ball is still as popular now versus what it was back then?
Well, to go back to that goes to sort of the roots of, and there's two different routes to follow on this line of thinking. And the first is just the the persistence and the pervasiveness of Japanese anime. And there was a great, basis of groundwork laid before Dragon Ball, and then especially Dragon Ball Z, which is when it became popular worldwide. There was a great base laid for them with, going all the way back to Astro Boy or Speed Racer or, Star Blazers. I can go through my childhood and see the ones that were important to me, but they weren't these breakout hits like Dragon Ball Z is. And I think it's persisted because it follows, something about the Japanese culture is they're able to refine things because they were an island culture and they were isolated for so many years. They're able to refine things down to their principal qualities. What is it that makes this tea ceremony or this, whatever it is? Japanese culture is very good at distilling it down to its essence. And in anime, they do that with emotions, with line, with action, and then with story. And Dragon Ball Z fits specifically into a particular niche that is, very common. It's as common as the only equivalent we would have would be some of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's very similar, where there are good guys and bad guys. Sometimes there's bad guys who turn good, and occasionally there's good guys who turn bad. But the lines are very clear between good and bad as to what is good and who is good and what is. And so they focus on those eternal principles, and that's what makes good art. The art that persists does not focus on the politics of the day. It focuses on these principles that endure past all generations.
That's fantastic, and that is definitely true in that regard. In that, regardless of how people feel about like the later parts of like Dragon Ball franchise, which obviously goes into the whole power-up situation, I feel like that it's been very strong because of the fact it's got really strong characters in it. It has that sense of adventure, and it started with the whole martial arts side of things and slowly started evolving into building out the mythology as the series went on, which actually goes into my next question, that obviously it's been going incredibly strong. There has been a number of criticisms over the years in the fact that a lot of characters outside of Goku and Vegeta have kind of been sidelined as the series started going on, with a lot of fans asking questions like, where's Android 17? Like, where's Emperor Pilaf? Where's Launch? And obviously didn't answer any of those questions until Super happened. But obviously now with the movies, and especially with the games, exploring characters outside of that, particularly with the latest one, focusing on Gohan and Piccolo, what would you personally want to explore in the Dragon Ball universe, like, going forward?
If I could be in a development meeting and pitch my Dragon Ball show to the powers that be, I would say that they should do a weekly, what is a traditional weekly episodic, which means the characters are the same. There's some overarching storylines, but generally speaking, each episode stands on its own. And it would be, as in, there's so many, all the procedural shows are like that. And this would essentially be a procedural show, but it would be Android 17 on his island with his family. And they would be either traveling to distant planets to save endangered species and protect their environment, or guarding against poachers or enemies or villains that are trying to destroy what he's got going on with him and his family. You get to explore his family, you get to see his kids. All the DBZ characters could guest star on it. It would be, it'd be time for Tien to shine. Tien could have a little
Absolutely.
episode.
No, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun one to do.
That would be fantastic. Well, we all know for the fact that one of Akira's final works was Dragon Ball Daima, which of course is kind of meant to be a bit of a reference to Dragon Ball GT, but more specifically to the original Dragon Ball series, and they've reduced characters down to kids, and it goes back to that sense of adventure and martial arts style, going essentially back to the roots of the original series in a way, but still having that Dragon Ball Z aesthetic to it in some ways. So, which I know he worked on personally before he passed away. So, anything is totally possible at this point. And knowing in the fact that they're now starting to explore a lot of these characters outside of Goku and Vegeta is fantastic. It's finally addressing a lot of the complaints I think us fans in particular have had it for the series since I think like Dragon Ball Z had ended or it started going into the later seasons of the series. So this is fantastic. So anything is totally possible at this point. Let's make it happen.
Yep, let's do it.
Absolutely. Now, moving right across into another popular work that you've done, which is, of course, the Fullmetal Alchemist series. You've obviously worked on the original versus the Brotherhood series. With returning to the Brotherhood series as Shao Taka, did you have to go into like a certain mindset with playing this character again after having done the original series? Or was it almost like stepping into the project like Fullmetal Alchemist for the very first time?
It was very much a repeat of what I had already done, except a lot shorter. My character gets a lot less to do in Brotherhood than he did in the original. So of course I prefer the original. But I had heard or was told that the character would have a similar impact in terms of being incredibly evil. And I still think the original did a better job of destroying the hearts and souls of people all over the world with their special kind of horribleness that Shao Tucker is. But going back to Brotherhood, it was fun to step back into the role. It's always fun to see the director again and to see the material again. And point of fact, you're as an actor, you're just happy to be working. You're happy that people want you to show up for work in the studio. You're like, yes, I will do that.
Nah, that is fantastic. Look, it was still an amazing series, the Fullmetal Alchemist show. Obviously, the original and Brotherhood, of course, and fits into that same scope of like people looking at like the original Fruits Basket series versus like the reboot, which happened like years later. And you and the actors across the board did a fantastic job in the series, without a doubt. It was amazing.
Thank you very much. It was
That's
definitely a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And your comments basically rang exactly the same as like when I interviewed Brina Palencia a couple of years back, and she said the exact same thing, that obviously in the original she got to shine out just a little bit more because they expanded on those characters just a little bit. So the turn later in the series would hurt that much more as viewers. But obviously going into Brotherhood, I understand, of course, they wanted to keep it way more accurate to the original version and to the manga in particular. So I understand, of course, why they had to do why they did.
Right.
But to each
I
their
do.
own, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Absolutely. Now moving across into another popular series, which is the Yu Yu Hakusho series, where you were best known for playing, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name, is Hiei? Is that how it's pronounced?
It's correct. You got it
Oh,
right, for
oh,
sure.
perfect, perfect. Where you played Hiei from the series and recently made your return to the OVA last year. What was it like playing in that series, especially coming back into the OVA series?
Uh, Coming back into the OVA was like, hold on, I'm moving my computer. Coming back into the OVA was like coming back from the dead. It felt like I had been in a coma for 10 or 15 years and woke up from the coma and they were like, you have some recording to do, because it was in the Crunchyroll studios, which were like Funimation but different. The fabrics were different. The setup, the layout was slightly different. Everything was just not exactly the same as it was. And then I got in the booth and the characters start talking and it was like I had just gone straight back in time to when we recorded it. And when we recorded it, we truly just loved, because there was no famous, when we recorded Yu Yu Hakusho, there were no famous voice actors. Their voice actors weren't going to conventions. We were maybe barely starting to, but even then, some of them were like pay your own way conventions, not the way we get treated nowadays. And so the love of the show was very pure when we were making it the first time. We just truly loved the stories and the characters. And then when you come back to it, just like Super was, we knew how big Super was going to be. And so when you step back into a role and you know the whole world's going to be looking at it, you're not, I'm a professional, so I'm not afraid of anything acting wise. That's not in my makeup. I mean, you get nervous, but that's just part of the job. But there was an extra sense of importance to what we were doing that was different from when we recorded it the first time. Because when we recorded it the first time, I was a principal of a private Catholic school at the time, and school was out at 3:15, and the studios closed at 6. So I could, if I left immediately after school, I could book from 4 to 6. And so I was basically recording Hiei from 4 to 6 on the days that I would record. And it was, it was a side gig. It was just a way to make extra money. There was no famousness in it. So it's a different deal now. We're very lucky. We're there's so much gratitude for what the fandom has given us as professionals and performers. Lots of freedom, the ability to just be a performer, to be a creative, to connect deeply with a fan base. There's plenty of people who never meet their fans. And anime voice actors are a great combination of underpaid and overloved, so that we are able to, go all over the world. I've been to Australia, and New Zealand, and Ireland, and England, and we get to go places that people dream of. And it's incredible. And coming back to Yu Yu Hakusho was a dream come true. I wish they'd reboot it. I wish they'd do it again to give it the Brotherhood treatment. Something. I'm hoping there's some interest in it after the live action series did pretty good.
Absolutely. No, I think you definitely hit the nail right on the head with that one, in that obviously we've been getting like the Brotherhood treatment, the Fruits Basket treatment, and we've been getting all these reboots and remakes as the years have been going on. Like, if they can manage to do that with all those shows, anything is totally possible at this point. So fingers crossed it's going to happen. And especially the way you were talking about, like with voice actors back then versus how they're treated now, of course, is truly exponential. And I will say this straight off the bat, and I will say this to the day I die in every single interview that I've done. If people ask me, why do you still continue to do the interviews that you do on this channel, which you've been doing I've been doing for literally 9 years now, and I still go to and I've been going to conventions ever since and all that, is people like, why do you still go to conventions? Why do you still do the interviews that you do and still do this channel to this day forward? One, I go to the conventions primarily to meet the voice actors. They're my rock stars right there. And I do this channel to show my support to the animation and the voice acting industry.
That's great. That's what makes this community so, 99% of the time, just a really positive community. There's the sort of political or whatever silliness that creeps into everywhere, but that's not the fandom. That's creeping in from outside the fandom, trying to manipulate or use the fandom. When the fandom is just the fandom, it's sub versus dub is about as hardcore as it goes. Nobody really, and even that, if you're at the rave, nobody cares. You're like, I don't care if it's sub or dub, let's dance, Or you're in some panel about cosplay, or you're doing, participating in some improv workshop, whatever it is. The anime fandom has always had just really strong positive ties to each other. And so you doing this show, that is a great example of it. 9 years of hard work for just love, that's an incredible testament.
Thank you so much, man, and I really appreciate that. And just doing my bit just to show my support to all the voice actors around the world and to the animation industry as a whole. So it's what I do.
That's very good. Very good, Simon. Very good.
Thank you so much, Chuck. Now, as talking a little bit, as you mentioned about with the live-action Yu Yu Hakusho series, did you ever get the chance to watch the series yourself? And with the release of the live-action One Piece series, what's been your opinion on anime and video game properties being adapted for live action?
So I'll tell you this, I was always shied away from any video game adaptations that were turned into narrative dramas or comedies. And generally speaking, that served me well. The newest Mario movie is an exception. It did really well, but I was turned into watching some of those movies by the animated series Arcane, which is based on a video game that I've never played, and I can't remember the name of it, but it is an incredible series. And I was like, wow, they did something great with this. And now they've done it again with the live action One Piece, and they're trying to repeat it again with the Yu Yu Hakusho. I think it's what you're seeing is the reality, which is the best stories, the most money, the biggest paydays are in video games. And at some point, with AI and VR and AR and Netflix and narratives, it's eventually going to be you put on a thing and you say, I want to do 6 episodes of the Seinfeld show, and I want to play the Seinfeld lead, but I want us all to be forest animals, and I want to experience it as if I'm saying the words naturally. So I want you to short circuit my memory processing power so I forget that I'm Chuck. Like eventually it's all going to merge into this thing that looks like the realities that we all experience here in life. That's what everyone's aiming for. So I think the natural progression of there being more and more video games turning into live actions, I mean, for years and years and years, going all the way back to E.T., there have been video games from live actions, but the reverse hasn't always been true. I think the first one I remember a video game being made into a movie was Tron. And it did pretty well, and I saw it in the theater, and kind of a bold leap, especially when you consider what the Tron video game looked like. Like, I can make a story out of that. But I even heard recently that somebody optioned the rights to make a movie out of a Magic 8-Ball. They did Battleship. So, like, everybody is always just looking for stories. They're looking for where are the best stories. And right now, video games, they've got some really, really great storytellers in video game franchise. And I know from friends of mine who are writers, they go from writing video games to writing on Star Wars series, or they go from writing on a Star Wars series to writing on a video game. So the pathway goes both ways when it comes to video games and writing, for sure.
Absolutely. No, that is fantastic. And as you were mentioning about, of course, with like, obviously video game movies have started to finally break that curse. Obviously when the Sonic the Hedgehog movies happened a few years ago, and especially started to get bigger when the Super Mario movie happened, which obviously was Nintendo's big break after refusing to let anybody make a movie or a TV show on any of their games since the live-action movie in the 90s. And now with the One Piece series breaking that live-action anime curse, and Yu Yu Hakusho following soon after that, my question...
not doing too bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the One Piece series was amazing, of course, and the Yu Yu Hakusho series, from what I heard, was still really, really solid, from what I heard. And now we're going to be getting the Borderlands movie with, of course, famously Jamie Lee Curtis, who's rumored to be playing, who we, of course, know is going to be playing in One Piece Season 2, the live-action series at some point, which is fantastic.
It's curious story about Jamie Lee Curtis. She is Brina Palencia and her
Yes.
became friends. I think she's Brina is Jamie Lee Curtis's favorite One Piece character or something. I don't know. But Jamie Lee Curtis bought a ping pong table for the old Funimation space, so she was very kind. She was like, this place needs something happy, and so she bought us a ping pong table.
That's fantastic. And I actually knew that story because Brina told me that story herself, which is just fantastic. Yeah, so, and Jamie Lee Curtis mentioned it in a couple of interviews as well, which is just fantastic. And my question to you, Chuck, and not just to you, but to all the listeners out there, let me know in the comments below, what anime adaptation do you want to see next, and what do you want to see in the future with like live action One Piece Season 2, Yu Yu Hakusho, and the Borderlands movie? And leave a like or a comment if you really want to see Chuck Huber make a Stan Lee cameo in the one live-action One Piece series or Yu Yu Hakusho series, or even the Borderlands series in the future. That would just be so amazing.
I'm surprised they haven't. They did it for the Mario movie. They had and his name is escaping me right now. The original voice of Mario do the uncle's voice.
Yes.
So he got to be there, and I think that's going to be. They're starting to see that they have to honor the fandom, and if they honor the fandom will honor them back. And so, to your question, what would I like to see? I would love to see more Yu Yu Hakusho. I would love to do a Stan Lee cameo in anything live action. That would be great. You know, and if it's not me, just from a producer's standpoint, it is incredibly cheap to get to give a nod to the fandom in your live actions by putting one of the voice actors, who's also a legit film actor, in your live action, because everybody who is a fan will come to see Eric Vale in the live action. Eric's got the hair for it too, man. Like he's ready for Pirate City. Like put him in that costume and put him in that live action One Piece. That would be incredible as some Stan Lee cameo. You know, I could be a teacher or something on Yu Yu Hakusho, a shop owner. I could sell newspapers, whatever. But I mean, like they could. It's such a simple formula. You just have to. Just give the fans exactly what they want in little doses and write a good story and honor the characters, and they'll be there all day long.
Absolutely, that is fantastic. And look, if they can manage to get like Charles Martinet to come back into the Super Mario movie, and even get like and even get Colleen O'Shaughnessy to come back as Tails for the live action Sonic the Hedgehog movie as her character, anything is totally possible at this point. And fingers crossed. Yep, fingers crossed it's going to happen. If not season 2, then definitely season 3, because that would be amazing. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely. Now you've also played across a variety of other shows, such as My Hero Academia, A Certain Magical Index, Borderlands, Initial D, One Piece, and all these other amazing shows and projects. What was it like playing across all these projects and these various characters over the years?
You know, when we started, there were not a lot of people who wanted to do it. It didn't really pay scale at all. You know, it was the cheapest of the cheap when it comes to acting work. So in the beginning, there was not a lot of money in it unless you booked a lot of roles. And so in the beginning, when we were trying to book lead roles, it wasn't because, I mean, it was because we wanted to be in cool shows. But I mean, it started with Dragon Ball Z, and then we went back to Dragon Ball, and then I think we did Blue Gender, and then we did GT, and then I think Yu Yu Hakusho. So like Yu Yu Hakusho was the first big next project where everyone was like gunning for it because they knew it was a bunch of episodes, and so everybody wanted to be in it because it meant extra money. But as an actor, getting to practice your craft like that, sort of being a company of voice actors as we were back in the day, there weren't more than 2 or 3 dozen of us doing the whole job. And now there's 1,500, 2,500 people per audition that want the job. Where back in the day, you had to spread yourself as thin as you could. But that forced you to move into different character voices, because if you could do and hey and you know, if you had a range where you could do 3 different versions of yourself, you could book more roles and make more money. And directors loved it, because if they had you in, because the director's job is a grind. It's like they're just trying to get all the puzzle pieces put together. And if you're there and you can do, you know, guard number 6, yeah, get out of here, or whatever, you know, you can do a voice that nobody's really going to recognize as Chuck Huber. You know, you can bust out, you can bust out 5 or 6 characters, little bit characters for them, with the extra time you have left in your session, and that made people want to cast you more, because not only did you do your job fast enough to finish before the end of the session, but then you were available to check a bunch of boxes on the director's to-do list. And that became vital, because I mean, back in the day, extra money, the only way we made proper money was to record in such an efficient way that you'd book, 8 hours and finish it in 3, and then you got paid for another 5 hours, and you just sort of goof off. I think Sabat used to call it a Chuck Huber session, and I think he called it a Chuck Huber session because I finished my booth work so early that they had time to pretend they were still recording, but then go screw around at the bar early. So it was like, hey, we're gonna have a Chuck Huber session, meant they were going to the bar. But that's back when we were all in our 20s and stuff, so it was perfectly acceptable. But now I'm a 52-year-old man. I can't really be like, hey, honey, I'm gonna knock off my session early and go hit the bar with the boys. But back in the day, that was golden, man.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And especially as you were talking about, like how you get into recording vocal sessions as you were, like playing all these big characters, like expanding your, like using the fullest of your vocal range as much as you possibly could. Especially where you get a lot of voice actors that are known, like you'd recognize their voices very much instantly. Like the best example of that, I think, is with Joshua Seth, who most people remember from the Digimon world as Ty, and you'd also get people like Crispin Freeman, who's another good example of that. Their voices will become instantly recognizable because I think I remember when I interviewed Joshua Seth a few years back, where he said that he made it a point to only use as his natural voice as much as possible. He could easily do as much of the vocal range as much as he possibly could, but he made it a point to only do the best acting performance he could just with his natural voice. Whereas on the other side of that, you'd have actors such as yourself, Chris Sabat, Lex Lang, and a whole range of these other amazing actors that you'd be just going like, that's Chuck Huber? I would never have guessed that.
I have when I'm in my natural voice, this one that's nice and nasal, where I'm playing the dad characters that I play, and it's kind of he. I mean, my natural voice is kind of Hiei. If I'm angry and I'm bitter, it starts to turn into Hiei's voice. But I don't naturally have that sort of attack. My voice is more, relaxed and dad-like. But because of those early days in the booth and because of what we did as kids, goofing around with voices, we were always trying to be different people in our house so that we could entertain each other. So we're always coming up with characters and figuring out ways to make each other laugh.
No, that's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And as speaking about with like a lot of the roles and characters that you voiced over the years, now obviously with like with interacting with fans at like comic conventions and all that, have fans ever come up to you and recognized you from roles outside of what you were most well known for, like roles that you would never have expected to be recognized from?
So there's two categories of this. There are occasionally people who will come up to the table because of my work in Star Trek continues, and these will be older people, Star Trek fans. I was one time at a convention in Dublin. I was at a football stadium, and we were on the concierge level of the football stadium. So the convention was essentially a giant, parabola, and I could see all the way down the hallway. And there were the group of like 5 old guys coming towards me. And I was like, what are those old guys doing here? Gray-haired dudes at this like anime convention. Finally they kept coming towards me, and I could see they could see me, and they started smiling, and they got closer and closer, and suddenly they were like, we're here to see you, Dr. McCoy. And I was like, oh my God, I got Star Trek fans that are surprising me in Dublin at an anime convention. So that's always lovely. And it's always lovely to travel to your part of the world and be like, I am literally, last stop before the ice ring and the great firmament. I don't know, whatever's out there. You guys are somewhere far, far away. It takes 15 hours to fly there. And when we get there, everybody's always so appreciative that we took the time to come down that way. But you don't know what it's like to be on Earth and have people from all over the world appreciate and like your work. But you'll get to someplace like Australia, and somebody will have had a different experience of you, and they're like, you are the dad from Shin-Chan to me, and that's all you are. And I'm like, yes, I love Shin-Chan. That was a great show. Occasionally I'll get Baccano fans who really like Baccano, or fans who, Initial D is one of those weird ones where where suddenly I'll have like 5 people in a row be like, I love Initial D, and I wish Yuichi was in whatever the reboot is, but he's not. Darn it! They don't need a gas station owner anymore. They're all professionals. I'm hoping he'll maybe have a cameo or something. That would be great. But yeah, because we've done so much work, a lot of times fans are like, I don't want to be the fan who just likes Android 17 or Hiei. I want to show my love of anime by showing how specifically I love, Spice and Wolf or Oedo Rocket, or, some of these shows that are Sergeant Frog, another one that people love. Hetalia was really hot for a while with the little kids. And it's fun to see them all grown up now and be like, I loved you as Austria. And I'm like, you're older now. So that hearing about those ones that we don't often hear about is always a treat, because sometimes we haven't thought about them in years. And somebody will come up and mention, Dominikov from Murder Princess. And I'm like, Murder Princess? I haven't thought about that show since I recorded it. Dominikov was great. He had a helmet on. You couldn't see his mouth flaps. He was fun to act. So we appreciate all the info that we get from fans.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. Especially when you hear about like a lot of actors that are like so synonymous with like specific roles. Best example of that, I think, was with Alec Guinness, as we were talking a little bit about Star Wars, where he was most known from Obi-Wan Kenobi, in that he would get so frustrated with just being remembered at like a lot of Comic-Con conventions, and especially meeting fans and stuff, because he was a hugely famous actor before he went into doing the Star Wars stuff. But on the other side of that, you have Christian Bale, who most people remember from the Dark Knight trilogy, where he once said, if I was just to be remembered as Batman when I die, I would totally be okay with that. So it's kind of a bit of a balancing act in a way, but it's great to see that like a lot of actors are not just remembered for like the roles that they're most famous for, but roles that they would never have expected or even thought about in years. It's just fantastic. And that's power to the fandom, of course. The fandom is incredibly strong.
It is, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, as we were talking a little bit about, like, with obviously the changes that are going on with the voice acting and the animation industry, because obviously with the introduction or kind of the notice of AI technology, and of course with the writers and actors strike that we had like last year, even though they had nothing to do with animation and all that, but also hearing about a lot of the working conditions that are happening with animation studios, particularly in Japan with anime. What's been your view on like the voice acting and the animation industry, like where it stands within the whole of the entertainment industry, and where do you think it's going to be headed going forward with all these changes that are going about?
Well, first off, Crunchyroll Funimation saved Sony twice now. Sony is a huge behemoth, and they saved Sony during the pandemic because anime was one of the only things that could be made during the pandemic. So they literally just ratcheted up and remote worked everybody and just kept Sony afloat by pumping anime, which in turn helped us as actors, because there was this giant resurgence of, not resurgence, but exponential growth in the anime fandom. So that was amazing to see and feel. And then they saved Sony again during the strike, because Texas is a right to work state. The work that you do at Funimation is non-union. So once again, they were able to be helpful. But now, with the advent of AI and with Disney getting into the space and Amazon and Netflix, everybody wants a piece of the anime pie now. So while Crunchyroll Funimation is really well established, the combination or confluence of AI, which is everybody is very worried about AI, and I think you should be, just like you should have been worried about the internet, but it all turned out fine. You should have been worried about electricity, it all turned out, steam power and factories, everybody should have been very upset about that, but we all survived. So we'll survive this as well. There's a little weirdness with transhumanism, and I have a feeling eventually there will be two classes of people, sort of robot connected people and what will end up being old Amish people like myself, who are like, you're not putting that in my brain. I'll just talk to you. I don't need to psychically communicate with memes, which is what it'll be. People will be beaming memes to each other, which we psychic, but all I can do is share memes. It sounds like I don't know. It's not my favorite, but the AI thing is unavoidable. But what it does do, and this is from my work as a producer in films, as well as working so long in the anime industry, it is going to empower the independent studios in a way that they weren't empowered before, because there was a lot of cost to translation, writing scripts, if you want to reanimate mouths so they fit the flaps better, if you want to do music editing, music writing, there's all this stuff that is enhanced by AI, and it makes the independent producer who's good and also understands the technology, it allows them to compete with the bigger studios in a way that they weren't able to compete before. So while it will remove the first things, it's already removed. Rosetta Stone has seen the writing on the wall, the language app, and they've said lifetime supply of all Rosetta Stone languages, 50% off. Come one, come all, come now. They're like, this is a fire sale because AI is going to destroy. I use ChatGPT to learn Spanish all the time, and it's like you have someone Spanish to talk to, and you can say, help me make my Spanish better, and it'll tell you and correct you. So the idea that software isn't going to be perfectly tailor fit to your individual needs that's just going to be the reality going forward. So the things we're going to lose are phone, like you used to book jobs where you recorded phone voice messages for companies, and you'd sit down for 5 hours and say, 1,000 names into a microphone and 24 different greetings and 35 different prompts. And you'd make $2,500 and it was great pay. Those will all go away. I think for the most part, audiobooks are eventually going to go away, and there will be premier audiobooks that sound more like audio dramas that are tent-poled along, around a star. You want to hear Benedict Cumberbatch read Sherlock Holmes. You're going to do that, but equally so, there you can make your own Benedict Cumberbatch now at home and have it read Sherlock Holmes to you. Is it as good as Benedict? No. Do you need it? I use the AI audio interface called Natural Readers, and I use it for my scripts. I'll throw a script in there and have it read the script back to me, because that's my process for writing. I need to hear the whole thing and then continue from where I left off, and I make notes along the way as to what I want to fix. So I go back and sort of warm up fixing it. So there's a lot of boring voice work that is going to disappear, and there's a lot of little studios that are going to suddenly have access to, if you need if God forbid, if you're One Piece and you need 1,000 characters per episode, some who only say 2 words, well, you need a big studio to do that because you can't afford 1,000 actors. But if you're an indie studio now and you do that, you can generate, not the lead characters, you're still gonna have to pay an actor to do the lead, but store guy number 1 is like, hey, here's your change. You can get AI to do that. So it's gonna remove some of the entryways into the big houses for young and up and coming actors. There's not going to be as much of a sort of playing field to enter into the bigger industry, but it's going to break up, and there's going to be a lot more independent houses, which means there will be more opportunity, just like it was with digital and digital animation and digital filmmaking. I mean, the cry against digital filmmaking when it happened was like, you're a charlatan. What kind of movie are you making with a digital camera? You're an idiot. That's not filmmaking. And so, it took 15 years for that to be, for film to be almost non-existent. So, but that doesn't mean acting or filmmaking has gone away. AI is going to be different, though. I mean, it is going to. This is like the change from. It's at least as big a change as we went from radio to television. if not from when we went to from theater. It's probably more closely related to when we went from live theater only to movies, radio, and TV. If you separated all of those, that's probably how big the change is going to be with AI. And in that scenario, it created a bunch more jobs, you know. So I'm hopeful that there will be more interesting and fascinating jobs to take up in the acting world. And as I always tell my students, don't wait for someone to give you an opportunity. Make your own opportunity. Make your own thing happen. Do a podcast for 9 years on your favorite subject just because you love it.
Absolutely. No, that is absolutely fantastic. And look, we've been through a pandemic and lockdown that has affected everybody at this point, and animation and anime in particular have come back on the other side, and we've got, of course, the AI, we've had the strikes. It's like, if we can manage to survive through all of that and anime still be okay, anything is totally possible at this point. Obviously, it's just people coming out of like the pandemic and the lockdown, still coming through all of that. That suddenly you get those two categories: the people like, yep, we'll get through this, and then the ones that'll be just like, it's gonna be like apocalypse now at this point. When really, that's like, it's definitely not going to be the case as far as I'm concerned. And as you've said, you've actually hit the nail on the head with all of that. It's like transitioning from like radio to like film and TV shows, where we still have radio to this day forward, but not as predominant as it was back then, which is not necessarily.
Is it? I think it's actually more predominant now because radio transitioned into podcasts, and
True.
now there's so like you can get a podcast on a specific knitting technique. You know, like I always wanted to learn double hatch. There's 32 episodes on double hatch, you know, knitting or whatever. So there's the information is not gone. It's not shrunk at all. That's for sure.
That's true. That is definitely true. And now, without going into any spoilers, what's next for Chuck Huber for the fans to know about?
So I don't have any spoilers to give. I'm hopeful for Daima. I mean, Emperor Pilaf is very much him and his crew. They're definitely kid-like. They fit into the oof of Daima. So I'm hopeful that he'll show up in there. If not Android 17 or Kibito or Android 13 or Super Android 17. Who knows? You never know who can come back. So there might be some there. I play Laplace in That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, which I heard has another season coming. So that's great. I still audition for work at Funimation. So, you know, always hopeful that next big gig will come along, or small ones. I've got a movie I'm producing. I've got classes I teach. I teach acting classes online. I got another one starting up at the beginning of April. To follow along with what I'm doing, go to chuckhuber.org. You can see all my stuff there. You can click on my master classes. If you are interested in voice acting, on my masterclass page, there's a link, and it opens up a spreadsheet to like 70 different places where you can audition. Because I know everybody's interested in it. There's something fascinating about voice acting that's as exciting as acting, but less scary in some ways.
That's fantastic. That is absolutely wonderful. And final question, what do you think Emperor Pilaf would say if he was in Australia?
Ow, that can kill me too? Oh no, it's all going to eat me.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. That is wonderful. Chuck Huber, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor to have you back.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me back. I always enjoy our chats.
Absolutely. And is there anything you would like to say to the fans out there in Australia and in the world?
I love you fans in Australia. Tell your local conventions to bring me back. I really want some more Tim Tams.
Absolutely. Well, you'll be happy to know that like Supernova is coming up literally next week, and we're going to be having Oz Comic Con later this year in the middle of June. So I will do everything in my power to get you to come back to Australia, because that would be amazing. That would be fantastic.
100%.
Absolutely. Well, guys, if you'd like to know more about Chuck Huber, you can check out the links which I'll put to you in the description below once this interview is up later today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that bell, check out the links, and don't forget to comment down below in the comments. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Chuck Huber signing off. Bye for now.
Goodbye.